All right, what is going on, everybody? We are live. I have Jordan here for a very special show today. For those of you guys who aren't aware, log into your SaberSims and you're going to see a whole new app. We are releasing SaberSim 3.0. We are calling it. This is going to be our launch and walkthrough show. That is why Jordan is here. He's going to help me answer all of your guys' questions. We're really excited for this release. We're really excited to get it in more users' hands and just hear all of the feedback. But I'm going to kick it over to Jordan. He's going to kick us off for today's show. If you guys have questions, you can put them in one of three places. As always, email us, support@sabersim.com, post them live in the YouTube chat, or post them in the Office Hours channel in our Discord server. Might be a long show today, but we are going to do our best to get through all of your questions for today's show. But with that being said, Jordan, go ahead and take it over.
Yeah. Excited to be back on Office Hours. It's been a little while here. This is a big update. We're super excited to get this out. This has been a long time coming here. I know there was a little bit of bumpiness with getting this out to everyone overnight and in the early morning here today. But if you do go to app.sabersim.com now, hard refresh your browser, you should be seeing the new version of the app. Everything we designed here, everything we built was really intended to improve upon what we already had with SaberSim, right? Continuing to give you more power, more speed, and more control over your DFS lineup. So the goal of this here today, I just want to walk through and show off a couple of these new features, walk through some of the basics here, talk about a little bit about what has changed and why. And then Andrew and I are going to answer a ton of questions for you guys. I know, I think I've been using this here for a few months now as we've been doing internal testing. I know Andrew has as well. And I think a lot of what is here is a big improvement. But the first day you use some of this stuff can be a little bit hard to just find the thing that you used to do, right? Part of your process, that was a big part. Where did it go? We didn't really remove anything for the most part. That's an important thing to note. So nothing was really intentionally taken away in terms of functionality. Things have just moved around a little bit here. So anything else, Andrew, right off the bat that you wanted to mention before we just kind of jump into things and start talking about updates?
No, I would say, can you pull up the screen? I would say.
I think you can for me.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
All right. So just one thing before I forget, because I think we're going to get real excited and we're talking about all the new features. But up in the top right, if you navigate there, there's going to be an option to go back to SaberSim Classic, is like the fifth one there. So if you guys, are having trouble using the app and it's getting close to lock, just navigate back to SaberSim Classic and, don't not get your lineups in, right? But I would suggest running a couple test builds, getting familiar with it a little bit earlier on the slate if possible, just today specifically.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'll call out as well the help, which takes you over to our support landing page here. I went through and updated all of these videos here in preparation for launch. So they are all updated for SaberSim 3.0. So if you need help with any of the new features here, or just want something to get you familiar, this 15-minute video is kind of, in addition to today's stream, a good place to start there if you want something to reference after. But let's go ahead here and dive in. I'll pull up my notes. So the first kind of like big change overall is what we're calling all-in-one builds. I think it's the first thing that immediately jumps out to you here when you hit the new SaberSim. One of the most confusing parts of the old app, especially, in my time on Office Hours and just new people signing up, was like, where do I change things in different parts of the process, right? You had the home screen where you had this data that kind of existed there. You had the build settings where you would set your settings there. Then you'd build the lineups. You'd be taken away to a totally different page. And then you're in this weird situation where you start changing stuff on the build screen. It doesn't affect what's on the home screen. But if you change stuff that's on the home screen, it doesn't affect builds that already exist, but it does affect new ones. Like, even as I'm just saying this sounds very confusing. So that has been streamlined significantly here. And most of your DFS process now just takes place all on this screen here. So if we go ahead and make a couple changes to our projections to unlock the DraftKings lineups, we'll just do 500 lineups here for the pool for the sake of time here and start building lineups. You see that this takes place here and just starts happening on the right side of the screen. And in fact, even the build settings, right? It just is here on the right side with our lineup rules. This all takes place here all on one screen. So should help a lot. We'll give this just a second to build because I do want to talk about a couple things once the lineups are done, but it should help a lot in terms of just streamlining the most simplest part of the process, which is getting your lineups built here.
And then one thing I did want to add, I think that one deliberate change that we made is we reduced minimum salary to 0. We're trying to put as much control in the user's hands as possible. So minimum salary is down to 0. And then if you go down to lineup rules, under the group rules tab, the don't use batters against opposing pitchers, that used to be toggled on automatically here, and that is toggled off. But I believe, Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, if you turn it on, since it is a rule, it will carry over to future slates and be toggled on automatically.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, so that the old rule that used to be in the build settings is now tucked into the lineup rules there. So good thing to look out for. But yeah, so otherwise, I mean, once you've built your lineups here, this becomes in effect like the same thing that you used to be looking at for a build, right? So you can change your sorting method here. So we could default to Saber score. We can set min uniques. We can set exposures. The data that used to show up within a build is now just loading into this player table here. So we can start interacting with it directly. If we want to, start to diversify, maybe get a little bit less Blake Snell, we can do so. And we are just now updating the lineups here on the right-hand side, the same way it used to within a build. But this now just is data that doesn't need to be managed in 2 different places. So if you want to build more lineups, right, if we're getting to a certain point, maybe you're seeing the message that your exposures can't be met, or you're just, you want to start over with a fresh build using what you have already done here. There's no more sending that information back to the home screen. This just is the information here. And we could go back to the build settings here now, maybe set a couple rules, do any other changes. And once we're ready to build new lineups, build lineups. And what this is going to say is that this is going to trash those lineups, the ones that we already have in this build here, and build new ones with what we have set so far. So in this case, didn't really do much, but Blake Snell, 50% max exposure is now something that this build will be listening to here. And the more changes we made, the more things that would be going on here. So one other very cool thing is that you do still have the ability to build new builds, but they are really like setting up an entirely different workspace now. So, what used to happen on the old SaberSim is you would have this home screen, and that was like your home base where everything was seeded from the home screen, but you only got one of them. So if you were the type of DFS player that you wanted to play, build a bunch of lineups for one game script on an NFL showdown and build another for a bunch of other game scripts, you had to do your whole first build, get everything the way you wanted it, and then completely wipe it out to do the next thing. You don't have to do that anymore now. So if this is like a build that's, say, in progress as I'm working through one particular angle for this slate, I can just open up a new build, which is a totally blank slate here, and start fresh. So maybe this is for a different contest, or this is for a different angle on the slate that I'm playing, just some other reason that I want to start with fresh. Another thing you can do is clone these. So you can basically start a new build from where a build is at. So maybe, you're going to go through and you're going to build all these different game scripts for a particular slate or something like that, or all these different slate scripts, I guess. But that there's a baseline set of lineup rules or exposures or projections that you want to start everything from. You can set that up in one build and then clone it and spin off basically copies of where that build is in time and iterate each one from there. So you just have a lot more control of how this data is getting passed through to different parts of your process than you did before, where you were really kind of limited to just one home screen.
And then also just to add on that, if you guys are uploading custom projections or doing anything like that, the wheel in the my projection column, if you have multiple sets here, they'll be available in every workspace. So you just upload it once, and then each time you open a new workspace, you could just navigate to that little wheel, and then your projection set will be available for however many workspaces you want to have.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's also worth noting here, since we're talking about the table, one of the things that has changed here is there's a lot more right click functionality built into the app. Someone made a joke in Discord earlier of like, there should be a banner on the app that says try right clicking before you get stuck, so that the cloning and renaming builds here is a right click on the build tab. But one of, I think, my favorite parts about this is how much functionality there is now in the table itself when you right click headers. So you can filter by really any column here and see any data you want by right clicking. So if we just want to, quickly see like players projected greater than 10, that's a right click, and see players projected greater than 10 points, or any of these columns. One of the ones that I saw somebody asking about earlier is like, how do I just see, if I want to just look at the Padres lineup, how do you do that? Well, you right click the team and select the Padres. And then we've actually still got the equals 10 here. So I'll reset that, but that's kind of the idea here. Wait, whoops. Do you know what I did here, Andrew?
I don't. Did you use the reset build button?
Yeah, I did. I think, here we go. So I think what happened is I got stuck on a filter. So I might need to take a look at this here because it looks like I got stuck on a filter here that is persisting, but I can't see it. So anyway, I'll take a look at that here as soon as we hop off, but the lot more functionality here with the filters overall. There's gotta be a way.
Jordan,
there it is. So, okay. So that's how you have to, it's because I filtered the SS projections column. So there's my filter. So I can go ahead and remove that. And now we should be good. So.
And then just one thing I've seen a lot of users already be asking about is where are the games for this slate and how can I see them again? So
yep.
If you want to show them.
Yeah, so in the toggle in the upper right, there's quite a bit more functionality that's gotten tucked into here. A few things that just used to show up as options on buttons and things like that has been consolidated up here. So the games panel is tucked up into here. So you can turn the games panel on or off depending on, if you need that information or if you don't. The games panel is like a weird contentious thing in our community where we've gotten a lot of people that said, why, like this takes up so much space, please just let me remove it. And then a lot of people that when we remove it are immediately like, where did it go? I need this. So that's why it has kind of become a toggle option here in the upper right. Also, auto apply exposures is now just like a global setting that exists up here. So that used to be like on a per build basis, you would either turn that on or off. If you want it on, it'll apply your exposures automatically. If you want it off, it won't. Open the site on download, same thing. That used to be like an old little button where you could either just open the file or just download the file or download the file and open the site. That's available here now. Compact lineups mode is actually a pretty cool one. We should talk about this here real quick. It's just a different way of viewing lineups here. So if you don't need to see as much information that is conveyed in your lineups that you get here, you can enable compact lineups mode and it will change your view to look a little bit more like this. Where you can see different metrics here laid out for your lineups quickly and see, more importantly, a ton of lineups all at once. So compact lineup modes, especially once we get into the contest sims kind of stuff, can be super useful for just quickly comparing, lineups to one another, comparing metrics, things like that. So these columns are editable as well, again, by right-clicking. You can also just sort quickly here as well. Which is really cool. So it's changing the sort in the upper right here as I'm moving through. So you could, whatever information is important to you to have in the compact lineups mode, that can be a pretty cool little feature there. So, yeah, a couple questions I saw like just coming in as we've been talking about stuff. So Jeffrey said, as far as right clicking, how do we do that on mobile? I believe, and I need to test this actually, but I believe what you do is just hold. So like kind of the same way you right click just in general on a mobile device is typically the convention is to just like hold it for a second and it should give you the right click option.
Right. I believe it's the long press option. Yeah.
And then Tim had asked about cache builds. So that's a good opportunity here to talk about another feature that got added here. Actually, before that, real quick, because I want to address this. So on the mobile thing, because Daniel had a question here. So one of the big changes here is that we got like a full mobile overhaul. So I know we've said for years that the app was mobile optimized, and it kind of was. Scott, our head of product, though, refused to use the site on mobile and said that like it basically was an unusable mobile product. And he and the front end team here had a huge hand in fully updating the site for mobile. I think personally that it behaves very much like an actual mobile app now. Like when you pull it up, it looks visually and it works like you would expect a full mobile app that you just download from the App Store to work. Really impressed. Scott was mentioning that he feels like it's easier to use on mobile than it is on desktop now. So I would check that out. That's another big part of the update here. So But let me quickly talk about this. So the style drop down, the cache drop down is gone from style here. What we did is we really just rolled this into a new feature called optimizer mode. What optimizer mode is going to do is it's going to build literally like a traditional optimizer. So by default, turned on to optimizer mode, it is the highest projected lineups possible. So in this case, build 20 lineups with a min salary of 0, a max salary of the max salary. Min uniques becomes a pre-build option here for these builds, and you're just like building like a optimizer. So if you want cache lineups, this is what you do. Default optimizer mode, you're good to go. The main reason we did this, though, is that there's a lot of other things that you can get out of optimizer mode. And where I think this is particularly useful is for people that maybe already have a process that they really like on other optimizers, but want to check out things on SaberSim like contest sims or like the late swap tools or like the entry editor, and want to basically do their process that they've done elsewhere using SaberSim, not using the sims. So we put in a lot of work here to make this work like any other optimizer out there for those that want it. I'm not going to use this a bunch. I think a lot of the SaberSim truthers are probably not going to use this a bunch. But if you want to build for something like a traditional optimizer, you can now do that. And especially for sports that we don't have sims for yet, you should have a lot more control over how those lineups end up getting built than you did before. The randomness in particular is a new rule option that appears when you're set to optimizer mode. And there are a lot of different randomness options here. So you can set a uniform randomness here. So if you set this equal to 10, basically, every time you build a lineup on optimizer mode, it's going to put every player's projection within 10% of that player's mean. You can specify what batting order spots or positions or teams that this randomness applies to. So you could create different randomness for your pitchers or batters, right? A lot of the same functionality that you see on other tools, we now have available here. The normal randomness options are pretty sweet in terms of like what the actual customization options are here. So this will, instead of using our simulations to build lineups, it will create a normal distribution for each player. And in the select method, you are basically deciding how are you setting the standard deviation for that measurement. So you can use the SaberSim standard deviations. You can upload a custom column of standard deviation if you're on the Pro plan and use that as your standard deviations. Or you can also set every player's standard deviation to a certain percentage of their average projection here. So, you know, if we set this equal to 50 or something like that, which is pretty high, Blake Snell's standard deviation would be 10.05. So again, really something for, I think, people that don't want to trust the black box or are maybe new to SaberSim and have a process they love on FC or some other optimizer. The randomness in the Opti mode is a pretty powerful feature here for those folks. Cool. Let's see. I'm going to keep rolling here and get caught up on a couple other questions here shortly. There's just a couple other features that I definitely want to make sure we talk about. So one of the other big features here, and this is just kind of like a nice quality of life change here, is the My Slates option. So the Slate dropdown got retooled a little bit here with the goal of just making it a little bit easier to see where you're at and what you're looking at. But this My Slate section is really cool. What this does is this is going to just dump any slate that you have built lineups for or uploaded an entries file for or starred here on the left-hand side into this separate section to make it easy for you to find the slates that you're actually playing that day. I know, especially if you're a grinder and we're coming up on NFL and NBA season, there's a period of time in the fall where it's like you've got NBA every night, you've got NFL 3 or 4 nights of the week or whatever, other sports going on. Maybe you're playing multiple slates a day. It's just hard to keep track of everything. This will let you do this. So I think like one of the cool ways that I see this working in my process, or what I would probably do, is once you go through and enter for everything in the morning or like at night for the next day, however you go about doing it, then you could just go through and like quickly find those slates when you have time in the morning and just upload your entries file for all of them. So they're already there. And then when you come back later to build lineups as these locks are approaching, you just have all of your slates and they're organized by your local time. So you can just like, as these different slates are coming up, boom, 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 you just have all your slates here. So I think that's one of the cooler features here in terms of just making things a little easier to use.
And Jordan, just to confirm, it's all sports, all sites, just in this one. So it's not like just your DK slates or just your FanDuel. It is everything across the board.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. So you've got like, it'll show FanDuel, Yahoo, all those other things. So one other thing here I definitely want to show is the new favorites option. So the favorites option, the way I kind of like think about this here is, I'm going to turn compact off for a second here, is it's like a place to store lineups before they're entered into a particular contest. And you can combine lineups from different sets and throw them all into favorites. So for the person that has been asking for years for the ability to build 75 lineups in one build, 75 lineups in a different build, and combine them all into your 150 max contest, you now can do that. So if you take any given set of lineups, this star icon will save it to favorites. Keep in mind, at the moment, there is not a way to just pick any given lineup and say, add that to favorites. You're always working from a lineup set here. So if you wanted one particular lineup, what you would want to do is lock it, set your number of lineups equal to 1, and then save that to favorites. But if we save these lineups to favorites here, this lights up, this turns green, this becomes a clickable tab here. And this kind of works a little bit like any other build here. So we can see projections, we can sort these lineups. These lineups are now here. Where this is cool though, is if we had a different build that had a totally different set of lineups, we can continue to add lineups to favorites. And then favorites from there just becomes like a build you can use to fill your lineups with the entry editor. So you could also upload your, you could take a empty build and upload a pool of lineups. So like if you've hand built 10 lineups, you're going to build 10 on SaberSim and fill a 20 max like that. You could upload a pool of the 10 lineups you hand built to a new build, add it to favorites, build 10 with SaberSim, add it to favorites, and fill that for your 20 max. So the favorites is solves a lot of like commonly requested use cases we've had for the past couple of years with really like how you fill lineups.
This is probably one of the most highly requested things that we've had for years or months here, right? A lot of people, want to build their showdown lineups. Like, hey, I want 10 lineups with the backup quarterback, right? And this is exactly how you do it. You build your set, save one to favorites, do a second build, go in and adjust those projections, run those builds, get those lineups, save those to favorites, and then just put them all into your contest from the favorites tab. So I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of use out of this.
Yeah, that's a big one. I want to answer a couple questions for people here before we start talking about contest sims and some of the other features there. So just from the top here, Neil asked about college football sims. The plan is to have support for this Saturday slate. So I will have more information. That's definitely not what we're focused on here for this stream, but I'll have some more info throughout the week on that. But the plan is to be ready for Saturday here. Patrick says that he pre-built NFL sims for Thursday night opener. Did you actually? Did you lose those entry builds? I think so. You shouldn't have lost anything. To see old builds though that you built on the old app, you may need to go through SaberSim Classic. The way that the builds are stored on our end is a little bit different here, and a build on SaberSim old is not really the same thing as a build on SaberSim new. So if you want to go look at old builds, you may need to go through SaberSim Classic to see that stuff here. Daniel asked about price. So SaberSim Ultimate, we'll talk a little bit more about what you get with SaberSim Ultimate in just a second here, is $297 a month. It is basically the all-inclusive SaberSim plan. So it is what you get for Pro plus contest sims. And we'll talk more about contest sims in just a minute here. But it is not, it is essentially the everything package. It's not an additional add-on. You don't need Pro and Ultimate here. So NFL main slates, not yet. We're not doing preseason sims, and we will have more. We'll obviously have
just to clarify on this one, when you're in the settings for the build settings, when that toggle is to the left, it's set to the left automatically. So you're automatically in sim mode. You're going to use our sims to build your lineups. It is only when you manually toggle it to the right that you are in optimizer mode. So if you log in here and don't do anything, you're going to be on sim mode automatically.
Aaron said, where can I upload custom projections? That hasn't changed a ton. That button is still here. Upload should look very familiar, behaves very similarly. I think the main differences there is that once you actually do that, you'll be prompted to save those. And the way that you change your projection set here is now with this gear icon under my projection. So you'll see all of your uploaded custom projections here. If you're on the Pro plan, you can still add a weighted average. That's very similar to how it's been in the past. So instead of it being a drop down up here, your custom projections are loaded here. So Benny Hanna said, is the max number of lineups still 5K? It is for now. Some discussions here on increasing that number and what that would look like, especially for the stuff like field lineups for the contest sims. So should we build new rules under update 3.0 to better take advantage of the new update? I would say, like, and Andrew, I think this is an interesting one. I'm interested to hear your thoughts as well. I don't think this is an update that really anyone should feel like their process needs to dramatically change. This was really to make things just more streamlined and easier to use, but I don't think what someone is doing needs to change. Like when we do something like we come out with adjusted ownership, maybe that changes the way that you're actually handling like ownership in your builds or something like that. But this is really pretty more like visual, more quality of life changes, even if you're using contest sims, which I know I keep saying. I'll talk about that here in a second. I think really that just ends up becoming the best sorting method you could use, but you're still doing the other parts of your process there. What do you think?
Yeah, I would caution, a lot of users from thinking, the site changes, the everything looks different. I need to do something different, right? I would say stay away from that. If you guys have a process that has been good to you, that has been successful, try not to deviate. Try to learn the tools without making too many adjustments first. We're going to be having a lot of content around this. This is really just the beginning of this launch here. So as you learn more about all of the updates, figure out how to add different pieces in slowly. So I would start with small changes after kind of learning about it, and then, decide what you want to do from there. But I would be cautious overhauling my process just because things are a little different.
All right. Benny Hanna said, can you use the player's season totals and calculate standard deviation? Does SaberSim's option do that? Our standard deviations are based on our simulations, so I think they're going to be a pretty good place to start from. With that said, I think a lot of times when people are going to be actually using optimizer mode, it's going to be for a sport we don't have sims for, or at least that's when I'm going to be using it. So if that's the case, like that's part of why we added the custom option. Like if you can find standard deviations from a different source, or if you want to just do that calculation yourself, this is basically just like a upload the data and give us the standard deviation. And then you're actually working with a pretty, you're probably working with a pretty decent distribution, especially for the sports that we don't have sims for. Like a lot of them are kind of more niche sports where people just don't have a lot of good data to work from anyway. Having a decent set of custom projections and a standard deviation that you trust and building lineups from there is probably decent. Ultimate plan for partners that I am working on like this afternoon and tomorrow morning to get that set up and rolled out for partners. So getting close there.
I thought this one was funny.
Does it come with giant squid tutorials? No giant squid tutorials. But you have my tutorials and Andrew's. Can you go over uploading entries straight into DK lineups? Yeah, so it's changed a little bit. Probably worth doing like a quick walkthrough here. So we've kind of talked about how to get to this point with your actual lineups themselves. Let me change this to something that actually makes some sense. So we'll change this to a large slate. Maybe these are my lineups, right? I'm happy with the way that these turned out here. So what you'll do is actually just click the Save to Contests button here. That will bring up a modal that should look generally familiar here. We'll download the entries file, and then we can drag and drop that here. This has gotten simplified considerably. Instead of it basically loading the entire entry editor here in a modal, this is really just where do you want to save the 20 lineups that you just clicked save and it will show all the entries that you have registered here. So for me, it's just the one. Your fill methods are still available here, and we can just go ahead and save those to contests. Once I have done that, this button, I'm not sure if you saw it, it turns green and it shakes a little, and it's basically saying that your entry file is ready. So I can click that and then download. That is a good opportunity here for me to show what that toggle does when this is toggled on. If I click that, it will download it and take you to the page on DraftKings like you're used to here. And then I can go ahead and get that uploaded. So a little bit different. Again, just something where like one of the big inspirations for the update overall is to just make sure that there were not like a million places to do the same thing and to just streamline the process. So when you are running a build now, when you save your lineups, you are saving this set of lineups to your contest and then downloading your entries file. And it's pretty straightforward from there. So.
And then the entry editor is still alive. It's just, instead of entries, it's just called contest now. So the contest tab is something that you can click on. It'll look very familiar to the entry editor that you are used to.
Yeah, actually, it's a good point. We should talk about this because it looks pretty familiar. There is a lot more here now. Mostly that you can see the lineups here, right? So now you've got your different contests here that show up on the left-hand side. You can still see exposures and projections of different players for different contests, but you can see the lineups. You didn't used to be able to do this. You'd kind of just have to trust that things were filled correctly. You can now see them here on the right-hand side. If you select different contests, the exposures and then the lineups that show up will change to what is actually entered into those contests. And if you see a particular lineup that you're wondering, hey, what contest is this entered into? That is over here on the bottom left of each lineup card. If you hover this, it will tell you what lineup it is in. So I know that can sometimes come up where you see a lineup in your entries by the time lock is passed, and you're like, whoa, I didn't really know I was playing that into this contest. Should make it a little bit easier to see it that way. So
do you want to talk about the all contest tab underneath, or is it too early?
Let me get caught up here on these questions, and then we'll talk about that here in a second. Baseballers, we'll talk about your question here on ROI metrics in just a second when I get to contest sims, because I do want to spend a little bit of time on that. On the note with contest sims, we are planning on doing another stream here, most likely tomorrow, talking about contest sims in more detail. I'll be doing that with Andy and Matt. So I think we're going to make the open Q&A part of that show exclusive to Pro and Ultimate subscribers, and then just release the recording to everybody after the fact. So if you're on Ultimate and need some help with contest sims, look forward to that. But Dante said, how do I adjust team totals? I know this has come up a bunch. This has moved just a little bit here. It is under the team's stacks tab. So the projected runs are available here instead of up here. Otherwise, it does the exact same thing.
And then, Jordan, just one thing on that. When people sign into SaberSim, they should see a banner up at the top talking about, our new update. And sometimes the banner can block the apply changes to team totals. So if you go in and adjust your team totals, you get a message down on the bottom of the screen asking you if you want to apply those changes. So if you guys are missing that, it is hidden behind the banner at the moment. So just X that out and you should be able to apply those. And then your projections for all the players in the game will update accordingly.
Cool. Okay. And then Kieran had a question about how do you eliminate all players and then add only the ones you want to play. I did it the old way from all players when I clicked on each position. This I actually think is trying to think about this here. So
what's the question here?
Here's what I would actually do. So this is a tricky one. So these tabs are like, they're not necessarily connected to one another, mostly because of utility spots and like what these actually represent. So a simpler way of saying that is like when you're looking at your stuff in like first base, you're looking at using a player in the first base position. So if you uncheck Ohtani from here, you are unchecking him from the first base spot and not from the outfield spot. So all of this to say, what I would actually do is if you want to go through player by player and add every player you want in your pools, I would uncheck everyone from all. And then instead of going to the positional tabs, filter by different positions. So filter, like you can go through and add your pitching pool by filtering the pitchers and then adding those players back in. And then you could go through and add your outfielders that you specifically want to play by filtering on outfielders and adding those players back in. Because like this is more the position they play in the sport, and this is more the position they occupy in the DFS lineup. So I would do it that way. Okay. There were a bunch of questions in Discord that were asked as well, and I want to make sure we get to those here. Question from Ziegler here. If you do an update for the DFS Ultimate trial and decide to go back, does your pricing revert to the current price, or does it pick up at the new? It will pick up at the new automatically, but we will put anyone back at the price they were at if you try the DFS Ultimate trial, decide you don't like it, and want to go back. So that's fine. You just need to email us, support@sabersim.com, and we'd be happy to do that here. So, and then a question from Kevlar here about review mode. Let me back up to a previous slate here. Do you know where review mode is, Andrew? I might actually need to. Oh, I think it's here. Yeah. So this button. You might be right, Kevlar. That might just be a bug here. It does seem like it is. Yeah, because I have 100% true ROM here in this build from yesterday, and then it drops. Oh, no. There we go. So that might be something, Kevlar, I would just send in a report, because it seems like this button is working correctly for me here, but this is where it is. Isolates the 20 lineups from the pool and sorts by actual score here. So
that sounds like it. And we have a lot of people tuning in. Just want to remind you guys, if you guys do see any bugs or anything with the app, up in the right hand corner, you could click on the drop down, and then there is a report a problem link there. You just use that, write us a brief message what you're seeing, and we'll be happy to make any look into it further for you guys. So we always appreciate that on our end.
Okay, Vegas Golf Fanatic said, if there's 10 of us using SaberSim Sims, using identical lineups, 20 of them, and choose the same 5 contests, same size and prize pools, will the results be identical each time, unique somehow? I'm going to use this as a bit of a segue to talk about contest sims, because I do want to spend some time here talking about it. The answer is almost certainly no, you will not get the exact results, but you will probably get similar lineups, assuming that you are starting with the identical pool, which is a big assumption, and that won't happen very often in SaberSim anyway, right? Like we've talked about that. I know Andrew talks about it in office hours often enough. I've talked about it a ton. Because SaberSim is randomly bucketing simulations from the slate to build your lineups, you won't even get the same lineups every single time you build on SaberSim, and you certainly won't get the same lineups as everybody building on SaberSim. From there, you will choose sims differently when you're running the contest sim than other people running the contest sim, even for the exact same contests. So there's still like a lot of ways that you're probably unlikely to duplicate somebody as you're doing a contest sim. But let's talk quickly about contest sim, because I do want people to just have an opportunity to see it here and see what it is and how it works. So what this basically does is this is going to pit every single lineup in your pool in a proxy contest that resembles the contest you are ultimately going to play it into on the slate that night. And the reason why that process is then going to happen 50, 100,000 times using our simulations of each game on the slate and a sense of what the actual contests look like. And the main reason why this is valuable is almost everything in DFS that people use to grade their lineups, whether that is projection, like, or ownership sum or ownership product, or more qualitative things like a group of core players or what stack types you're using. Those are all really just, even Saber Score, right? Which is a decent approximation. Those are all just approximations or educated guesses at what makes a lineup good for that particular slate. With contest sims, you are going directly to the source and saying, if this slate is to play out over and over and over and over again over a massive sample size, which lineup actually has the highest return on investment for the entry fee that I'm playing it for. So the process of actually going through and doing this on SaberSim, first of all, it starts by having your build ready. So once you have your lineups built here, you'll go to the settings tab. Then you go to contest sim settings, and you can add up to 5 different contests that you're going to simulate against for every single lineup in your lineup pool here. So what I have been doing here is basically bucketing all of the contests I'm playing on that particular slate into 5 big chunks, and putting all of my lineups that, well, I'll show you here and it'll make a little bit more sense. But we have these different contest parameters here, and this is how you set, this is what the contest I'm playing tonight looks like. So SaberSim knows how to simulate it correctly. For NFL, NBA, and baseball, at least to start, we are going to have these different fields that we have created for how we expect, based on our research and backtesting, the field is going to play in certain contests. These are actually this has been for a long time how we have derived our ownership projections, is by creating these fields. So now we're just basically making them available here so you can see them. So I'm playing the solo shot tonight, so we'll use that as an example here. That is a low stakes 20 max. So that is what that is going to do, is that's going to use field lineups that we think are representative of how the field is going to play this particular slate. If you want to see what those lineups actually are, you can see them in the contest tab on the left, bottom left here under ownership contests. You can actually go in and look at any of these. So you can see, it takes a second because it's going to load 5,000 lineups, but this is the representative field lineups that we think is closest to how the field is going to play the solo shot tonight. If you want to edit these, you can click create custom field, and it will actually seed a build with the field lineups and allow you to edit them, delete lineups, edit them. You can iterate on what we've done here, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's go back to the contest sim settings.
And Jordan, really quick, just before you continue, this drop down from the field lineups is available like in the My Own tab. So if you go to the My Own tab on your table, click that gear icon, you're going to see the same thing. And then you're going to see the ownership projections update. So the ownership projections here, correct me if I'm wrong, are just basically the exposure from this pool of field lineups. So the exposures, that the ownership that you're seeing are the exposures from this particular bucket. And then we're going to use those field lineups to do your contest sim against that.
Yeah, and you can look at this here and just kind of see, like, quickly, we think that the field's going to find the best plays a little less readily at the low stakes, right? Like some of the top projected owned guys, like ownership's just a little more spread out. Looks like it's a Braves slate here with Snell and Rodon. Well, the ownership has come down a little bit for them. From here, we need to know the contest dynamics. So we want to know the contest size and the payout structure. How much of the field is getting paid out to first? Oh, let me change this back to low stakes 20 max. How much of the field is getting paid out to first? How much of the field is getting paid period? And how many times do you want to run a sim? So this is stuff that you can just calculate. It is the percent to first divided by the total prize pool. This is the percent, like basically the last payout spot divided by the total size of the contest. You can also get this information here in the, in the all contests tab here, which I'm going to talk about here more in a bit. But this is all of the contests, at least for DraftKings, that are on that particular slate, or virtually all the contests. So you can see the solo shot here. We can quickly just go and look and see that it is 6.7% to first. It is 26% cashes, and the contest size is 17,835. So we can load that in real quickly here. 17,835. It is 6.7 to first. It is 26% of entries paid. And you can actually do this up to 100,000 times. It's set at 50 by default. And save this. And we'll give this a name. We'll call this solo shot. And what this is doing here is it is basically going to create a proxy version of the solo shot tonight using our field and using the payout structure that we provided of what this contest actually looks like, and simulate it 100,000 times for every single lineup we have in our pool. And it is going to say what lineups, how often did lineups cash? How often did these lineups bank in this proxy contest here? And what was the ROI of individual lineups in the contest that resembles what the solo shot is going to be here tonight? And what is just so valuable about this here is it is getting rid of a lot of the guesswork of what makes a good lineup for that particular slate. Like we've kind of been moving towards this here with things like adjusted ownership and some of the other updates, upside correlation, like some of these things that we have released over the past year or even 2 years. This is the most surgically precise way of calculating lineup quality that we've developed here so far. So once the sim is run, we will have this new dropdown in our sorting methods with ROI, win rate, cash rate, and the standard deviation ROI. And these are calculated from those sims. So this lineup is our best lineup in this set here for this particular contest. And over our 100,000 simulation sample of this slate here, this lineup performed at a 97.6% ROI. It won the contest 0.14% of the time. It cashed 36.1% of the time, and its standard deviation of the ROI was 19.6. So these are the 4 main metrics that you get out of a contest sim. And if you run multiple contest sims, you can do up to 5 different contests here. You'll get these metrics for each individual contest that you're playing. Anything to add on to that here, Andrew, before I kind of keep going? Yeah.
So just made a couple of notes here. So a couple of things. One, when just going back to the kind of the beginning of the demo, in the contest tab, in the all contests, you could still use that right click option if you're having trouble finding your contest. So Jordan said, hey, I'm playing the solo shot. So you can just right click and then type in solo shot, and that should help you to identify your contest faster. And then, like you said, just scroll over to the right, has all those calculations done for you. I know that can be annoying, busting out the calculator, trying to figure out what those are. So I would highly recommend using the all contest tab to find that information. And then in the build or looking at your lineups, this is probably a great time, or let me say this, if you're using multiple contest sims, if you're using more than one, since we can do up to 5 at a time, it's a great time to take advantage of the compact lineup mode. It's probably one of my favorite times to do that, because your metrics are all going to be available. If you just bring that out, they're all going to be available in these columns, right? So you could have your ROI for your solo shot, and then your ROI for your second contest, third contest, etc. And then they're all going to be easily viewable, and you can sort by them quickly, etc. here. So I really like that option. And then if you are looking at it in the normal version here, the lineup sorting metric dropdown houses all of those by the name that you gave it. So it's going to be solo shot. You click the drop down, you have all your 4 options, and then same thing for your second, third, fourth, fifth contest sims here.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's the basic version of it. And then kind of coming full circle here, ROI for each individual contest now just becomes basically the perfect sorting method for a particular contest here, right? So you could and still should do the other things that make up your process here. I think in particular, diversification is still very much worth doing here rather than purely optimizing for ROI. On that note, real quickly, I know this question comes up, right? You get these 4 different methods, or these 4 different ranking methods from the contest sim. Which one is the best one to use? I think that the ROI is the best to stick with. And going back to Baseballers' question from before, for now, I am using ROI for my contest as my main sorting method. I think there is an argument to creating a custom metric based on ROI that maybe takes into account more like the standard deviation of the ROI, or maybe the cash rate, or maybe is a way to kind of blend that together to make your swings a little lower. But because ROI is the best metric at taking into account the full payout structure of a contest, I prefer to use that for now. But this is where you are kind of doing the rest of your process. So you can diversify your pool here. You can, if you want to take stands on certain teams or players or edit exposures, things like that, you just now have this very precise surgical method for determining what the best lineups are to play.
And Jordan, just to talk about something. So I know we've taken a little bit of a break, like the last month or 2 on pro exclusive content. It's not listed on the my account page with the options of what you get with different packages here, but the pro exclusive content is going to go way deep into sorting metrics and in theory and ownership and what you should be doing. So I can't wait for that to return. Personally here, I'm going to be really excited when that makes a return here. I know a lot of other users are, but these are the type of questions that we're going to go in more depth on. So if you guys didn't know, you get videos and content behind a paywall with the Pro or Ultimate plan. And then we're going to dive way into those topics here. So looking forward to those conversations.
All right. I'm going to kind of quickly go very, very quickly through a few other features that I definitely wanted to highlight and answer a handful of the remaining questions here as best we can. So first, we kind of touched on this here at the start, and I just showed it for the contest sim part of this, but we also have a new feature we are calling Contest Flashback here. It is available as a Pro Plus feature. So you have it on Pro, you have it on Ultimate, and it's where we just were in looking at the payout structures for the solo shot, but it does a lot more than that. So for past slates and for DraftKings only at the moment here, you can come in here and view a previous contest. You can view all of the lineups that were actually played into that particular contest. It does take a second to load because we're loading 20,000 lineups here. You can sort these lineups by the things like projected score or ownership, or there are things like actual ROI or simulated metrics. So if you want to see what the lineups were with the highest ROI expectation on a particular slate, you can sort them that way. You can also go in here, and I'm going to be very quick. I encourage everyone to come in here and play around for past slates. You can see how players used certain players or teams or stacks, or also look at actual individual users and see how many entries they played, what their profit was, what their expected profit was, or their expected ROI. You can sort this the same way you do other tables on the site with the right click here and look at all 150 maxers. There are a ton of ways to use this. You can use this as like a player study to see how a particular player is playing. You can use this as like a lineup study and see how well a particular strategy worked, like what was the most profitable way to play a Brave stack yesterday, and look and see on 4 Brave stacks what were the highest ROI lineups. This is another thing that probably deserves an entire video, but I wanted to let people know that this is here on Pro Plus subscriptions. It's awesome, very cool, and definitely check that out.
For all of the Giant Squid comments, now you can go and study his lineups and see what he's doing, what other users like, Crafty Lefty, Shady Advice are all doing as well. So
okay, cool. I am going to go kind of lightning round here and try to get through as many questions as I can. I do have to hop off here in about 8 minutes, but I will probably leave you guys with Andrew to kind of get the rest of the questions that we missed here. So real quickly, contest flashback, we'll be adding contests going forward. Yeah, we are not backfilling any past slates. I think it goes back a handful of weeks because we've been testing it internally here, but we're not like going back to last season or anything like that on contest flashback. Is that correct, Andrew? Do you know anything about that?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
The contest flashback is like going forward. I may have to double check on that. I don't know.
I think there was a certain date.
Okay.
I would say through the beginning of August, I believe.
Okay. Albus said, what goes into the ROI calculation after running contest sim? I've tinkered with creating a metric that weighs ROI and win percentage, but I want to make sure I'm not double counting win percentage if that's a part of ROI. It is. I mean, it is like the strict mathematical definition of return on investment. I'll let you kind of look this up, but it is the average of this for each sim. So basically I'd have to think about this to explain this articulately, but it calculates basically the expected return on average for every way that lineup can finish in the contest, including first place. In fact, first place is the main part of ROI for contest sims. So you are definitely double counting if you create a blended metric that uses win rate and ROI. And you're double counting the highest variance part of the ROI. So keep that in mind. Okay. Very quickly here, some questions that Andrew prepared ahead of time for just like how to do some basic things. How do I upload a lineup set from a CSV in the new 3.0? If you create a new build and don't have any lineups in it, and right click, you can upload pool. That will upload a lineup set. That basically is now an interactable build that you have based on that lineup set that you can do things with.
And just to add on that, that is one of the ways that, if you don't want to use one of our 13 ownership options here, and you want to upload a custom pool of field lineups, that is how you can do it. And then you can just sim against that. Once you upload it, that will be an option in your dropdown to run your contest sim against.
Xing out teams, right click, and X out this way. So no Boston, no Boston.
Actually, Jordan, I think you have to uncheck them, right? So just unfiltering them will not remove them from your pool. You have to filter for them and then use the check on the left-hand side.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. There you go. So
Boston.
You would filter by Boston and then uncheck Boston. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
And then now they're not in your player pool.
Okay. Reset all pops up here as you are making changes here. Reset to defaults.
Yeah, no more, shiny red button, but it is right there in the middle of the screen.
The time of last update is a bug that we are working on getting back. So I would keep an eye on Discord for now, for when sims are running for most of the sports here. We are working on getting that back here. Question, if I adjust player min and max exposures on build 1, how can I have those reflected if I open a new build tab instead of having to redo them? That would be when you want to use the clone. So right click and then clone, and you are building a build there from this information that's seeded here. I think there was a follow-up as well on that I saw elsewhere in Discord where whoever asked this said, well, I don't want all of that information to be carried over. I only want some of it. What I would do if that's the case is just put the information that you know that you do want carried over in first. So load all of your exposures and then just keep a build that's basically just your baseline and then clone and create the variations from there. So clone it the first time and then add the lineup rules that you only want in that particular build and you don't want elsewhere. Cool. And then I think that gets us caught up on Discord here, at least with the questions that have been coming in.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then that last one from Moose Call, if you're trying to X out teams for weather concerns, I would just do the same way that Jordan did.
Yeah, same way.
Boston example, excuse me.
All right, cool.
Probably just a few more questions here. If you have to run, I can answer these or we can knock these out. Probably starting with Matt here, Matt Tillman. And then a lot of these were questions that I was bringing in, but your call.
Okay, yeah, let's keep going here.
Here you go. I'll bring them up.
Yeah.
On the screen.
Okay. So will you lose any ROI if you increase min uniques? Yes, in a very visually clear and literal way. So you can actually look at this here, and this is an interesting, and this is getting into more of the theory side of it, right? But oftentimes your top ROI lineups are going to be pretty concentrated on a handful of players. It might be a particular construction that
and also highly leveraged.
Yeah, exactly. Very often very contrarian here, especially if the contest is a very top-heavy payout structure. So you are going to sacrifice some ROI as you increase min uniques. But because a lot of times this ROI is so heavily driven from top 0.1% outcomes or literally first place outcomes, it can be worth that for the same reasons we've defended diversification for years here. That seeking ROI at all costs is not necessarily the optimal strategy for maximizing bankroll growth. So I think you're going to expect to sacrifice some individual lineup ROI or average lineup ROI as you diversify. And I think that's okay, as it is meaning that your bankroll is a little steadier and maybe lets it be a little more likely for you to realize that ROI over a shorter period of time. Lot to talk about there, something that maybe we can get into
Definitely
in other videos. Yeah.
This one from Chris, probably real quick. It looks like we touched on it a little bit, but just to confirm, with the optimizer mode, if there is a sport that you want to build lineups for, soccer or something like that, I would recommend using optimizer mode, uploading your projections, setting your randomness, etc., and then you should be all set to go.
Cool.
Just a couple last ones here. One from Danny: how do you add the SaberSim field generated lineups to the build tab? Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, you did that via the contest tab, right?
Yes. So a couple just quick notes on this. So all the fields are available to you here already, as well as any lineups that you've actually built. So you don't if you just want to run contest sims, they're just here and available. If you want to create a build from the field lineups that we have, that is in contests and then ownership contests in the bottom left. And then you'd pick the one. So let's say we want the contest, the low stakes 20 max here. Then we can go create custom field. And what this will do is it takes just a second to load it here, but it's going to basically create a new build with the 5,000 lineups that come from that field loaded into it. So from here, you could then do things like edit lineups or delete lineups, or if you wanted to, use a different subset of these as your field, something like that. So.
All right, Jordan, 2 more questions, and then we are going to get out of here. All right, from Betty Hanna, are the contest sims ready for showdowns for NFL?
Yes, insofar as we're ready for NFL in general, right? We still have a lot to do, like getting the final NFL stuff ready for this year, getting the sims ready to run, but we should be good to go. NFL Showdown is going to be an interesting one because duplication becomes so much of a concern. Our field lineups are going to have dupes in them. So we are effectively trying to predict dupes. It does get pretty weird, though, because in that case, if there is a very high ROI lineup that appears to not be duped at all, there are other SaberSim users that are going to see that. So I do think that does become an interesting metagame here of how best to use that, something we'll talk about in pro videos and other content. So the tool will be ready for NFL Showdown. I think there's a lot of strategy things that we'll want to talk about there.
Definitely. All right. From next one was, will these tools be available for Owner's Box for the NFL season?
They should be. So I will say a cautious yes. We have a little bit of work we need to do on that front, but.
All right. Last 2, are you going to have a more in-depth tutorial on the sim rather than not learn on the job, so to speak?
Yeah. So, in that help that we were talking about before here, there is a how to use contest sims tutorial, it's an 18-minute long video of me kind of walking through literally how to use it, showing a lot of the features, showing a lot of the tools that are at your disposal here. That should be a pretty good video here to get you started. Again, there is a lot of strategic content here that was on the way in terms of how to use this for different sports, how to use this for different contest sites, how to navigate late swapping with the contest sims when it comes to NBA season. All of that will be coming out in due time here as we move along. So the basic tutorial kind of stuff should already be up. The strategic stuff most likely coming later.
And then to come full circle, we started with this at the beginning of the stream before getting into all of the nice and fancy updates here. But if you guys are using this, today, next couple days, getting familiar with it, but you are having trouble at any point, you guys can go back to SaberSim Classic here and use that if you guys are in a crunch close to lock here. So that is going to be up for a little while here, like Jordan is showing up in the top right. Click the little drop down, and then SaberSim Classic is the 5th item on the drop down.
Cool.
But that about does it. We're going to wrap it up there, everybody. If you guys have any more questions, I will be right back here tomorrow, Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, for our next office hours show. Ask as many questions as you guys like. I'm going to be here the entire time till we answer all of the questions. But appreciate Jordan coming on and giving us this walkthrough and, these what's the word I'm looking for? Not definitions, but just giving us kind of an idea of what really went into this. So really appreciate your time, Jordan. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Until tomorrow, we will see you guys. Take care. Good luck. Bye.